The sinking sea was not a name given lightly. It was a vast, unforgiving expanse where fortunes were made and more often swallowed whole by the endless churning gloom. Captain Aaron Tidesworn stood at the helm of the mended wreck, a battered schooner held together by little more than willpower and salt-cured rope, staring into the heart of a brewing squall. Aaron was a man whose skin was leathered by wind and whose eyes held the constant, distant look of someone searching for shore when he knew none existed for him. His current quarry was not gold or jewels, but the legendary Ballast of broken dreams, an artifact said to reside at the deepest point of the sinking sea. Legend claimed the Ballast was a massive lodestone artifact that could calm the chaotic sea's tempers, ensuring safe passage for those whose spirits were truly steady. For Aaron, it was a chance to finally tame the sea that had stolen his first ship, his legacy, and his crew 7 years prior. The Ballast was rumored to be the only thing capable of stabilizing the perpetual maelstrom that guarded the final resting place of all forgotten vessels. His first mate, a giant of a woman named Kale, whose strength was matched only by her skepticism, gripped the rail beside him, her brow furrowed against the spray. Captain Kale's voice was rough as barnacles. The winds are shifting too quickly. This isn't a natural storm. This is the sea telling us to turn back. Aaron merely tightened his grip on the wheel. The sea has been telling me that since I was a boy, Kale. This time, I'm not listening. What made the quest truly perilous was not the sea itself, but the relentless pursuit of Governor Silas Grant, a ruthless privateer who craved control over the sea's currents. Grant sailed the sleek, ironclad frigate the Relentless, a vessel designed for speed and devastation, driven by a greedy desire to weaponize the Ballast. The reason for their urgency was simple. Grant believed the Ballast was literal tonnage, a vast cache of heavy magical metals that would grant him naval supremacy. Aaron knew the truth, gleaned from ancient waterlogged charts. The Ballast wasn't physical weight, but a metaphorical anchor for the soul. It was a catalyst, reacting only to the burdens and regrets carried by the one who sought it. Turning emotional ballast into actual stability, they sailed for another day, dodging massive rogue waves that crashed over the deck, turning the schooner into a barely submerged wreck. Kale shouted orders, guiding the remaining 4 crew members and battening down the tattered mainsail, their faces grim under the deluge. Suddenly a flash of signal light pierced the gloom behind them. Sharp and unmistakably it was the Relentless, catching up far sooner than they'd anticipated. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Aaron roared, his voice cutting through the wind, adrenaline overriding years of weary cynicism. Grant's frigate was too fast to outrun, so Aaron steered directly toward a field of jagged, submerged reefs, a graveyard of ships even experienced captains feared. "He won't risk the Relentless on the dagger's teeth," Kale protested, terrified of the infamous hidden coral spires. "He will when he thinks I've found his ballast," Aaron muttered, his gaze fixed on a barely visible treacherous channel. The mended wreck darted through the reefs, scraping painfully along the coral, a maneuver that spoke volumes of Aaron's desperate expertise. Grant, blinded by greed, hesitated only a moment before ordering the Relentless to follow, too close for comfort. The chase led them toward the heart of the maelstrom, a permanent, swirling vortex that devoured light and hope alike. As they neared the maelstrom's edge, the magnetic pull grew immense, wrenching the compass from its pivot and rattling the rigging. "There," Aaron pointed, spotting the faint, impossible outline of a submerged island at the vortex's epicenter, the legendary Isle of Deep Repentance. The isle was the supposed nexus of the Ballast, shrouded in a dizzying current of ships and debris pulled from 1,000 years of sinking. Grant's ship was now dangerously close, and Grant himself stood on his forecastle, spyglass raised, his face contorted by impatient fury. He fired a warning shot, a cannonball whistling past the mended wreck's mizzenmast, splintering wood near the railing. "Aaron, yield the artifact, and I'll grant you a swift death." Grant's voice carried over the roar of the water, amplified by a speaking trumpet. "You seek weight, Grant. I seek peace." Aaron yelled back, his ship dipping violently into a trough. He ordered Kale to drop the auxiliary sail, a risky move in the maelstrom, to gain the final burst of speed they needed. The mended wreck shot forward, using the chaotic currents like a slingshot, narrowly escaping the inevitable pull of the vortex. They hit the strange, still waters within the eye of the storm, a place, of unnatural calm and blinding, electric blue light. The Isle of Deep Repentance was tiny, dominated by a single monolithic, black stone pillar covered in barnacles and strange glowing script. They had reached the Ballast's location. Grant, equally desperate, plowed the Relentless into the calm, the sudden stop shaking his massive ship. Aaron and Cale scrambled ashore, their feet finding purchase on the slick, uneven stone. Grant's men were already disembarking, swords drawn, led by their furious governor. The pillar. "Break it open, men. The world's greatest treasure is inside," Grant screamed, mistaking the monument for a giant treasure chest. Aaron realized Grant's misunderstanding was their only advantage. "It is not inside, Grant. It is the ballast." As Grant's men futilely hammered at the black stone, Aaron turned his attention to the glowing script etched on the monument's surface. He recognized the pattern, the old Ethelin language he'd been researching. It was a catalog of the sea's lost souls, a record of every tragedy. To activate the ballast, one had to acknowledge the truth of what the sea had taken, the broken dreams it carried. Aaron knelt, reading the names aloud, including his own lost crew, Thomas, Eris, and young Jem, who had drowned clutching a promise. As he spoke the names, the black stone pillar began to absorb the light around them, and a resonant, echoing sound filled the eye of the maelstrom. Grant stopped hacking at the stone, turning to Aaron with genuine confusion and malice. "What ridiculous ritual is this?" "Get him!" Sharp, swashbuckling skirmish ensued between Aaron, Cale, and Grant's lead cutlasses on the slick, wave-washed stone. Cale was a whirlwind of motion, her boarding axe a blur as she held off 3 men simultaneously, shouting encouragement to her captain. Aaron, focused on the language and the task, only fought defensively, using his short sword to parry and block Grant's frantic attacks. Grant, impatient and furious, tossed his sword aside and drew a heavy, ornate pistol, leveling it directly at Aaron's head. "You have wasted my time, Tidesworn. Now give me the key to this contraption," Grant roared, his face mottled with rage and salt water. Aaron knew he couldn't win the gunfight, but he didn't need to. He needed to complete the chant, to acknowledge the weight of his own broken dream. The ballast was waiting not for a physical offering, but for a true, emotional sacrifice, the acceptance of his failure and loss. With Grant's pistol aimed, Aaron closed his eyes and whispered the final phrase of the Ethelin script, "I accept the loss. I become the anchor." The moment the final word left his lips, the black pillar did not break. Instead, it dissolved into a dense, silvery liquid that flowed toward Aaron. The liquid, which felt impossibly heavy, yet weightless, wrapped around his core, integrating itself into the man who had finally made peace with his past. Grant fired the pistol, the report echoing deafeningly, but the bullet simply stopped midair, caught in the sudden, absolute stillness that descended upon the isle. The ballast had worked. Aaron was now the stable point, the emotional anchor around which the entire sinking sea's turmoil revolved. The maelstrom, which had been a churning hellscape just moments before, began to slow, turning into a gentle, spiraling current. Grant stood frozen, watching the unstoppable chaos of the sea transform into a manageable order, realized he had fatally misunderstood the treasure. "What sorcery is this?" Grant shrieked, looking at the silent sea and the unmoving bullets suspended between them. Aaron opened his eyes, which now held a strange, unsettling clarity, reflecting the deep blue of the stabilized currents. "It's not sorcery, Grant," Aaron said, his voice quiet but profound. "It's balance. The ballast accepts only the true weight of regret." Grant lunged for the hovering bullet, believing it was the key, but as his hand touched the still metal, the ballast's power rejected his greedy intent. The silvery liquid recoiled from Grant, instantly wrapping itself around the Relentless, encasing the massive frigate in a layer of impossible, paralyzing inertia. The ballast recognized Grant's lust for control, and it used that very desire to sink him not in violence, but by making his ship too heavy to ever move again. The Relentless, the vessel of greed, became a permanent, inert fixture in the calmed waters of the maelstrom's eye. Grant watched in horrified despair as his ship became an instant, useless reef, permanently anchored by his own unrepentant hunger. Aaron had no need for revenge. The sea had delivered its justice, turning the symbol of Grant's power into a prison. Cale and the remaining crew watched in awe as the once raging storm softened into a gentle breeze, the waves cresting with a friendly, manageable rhythm. They had survived not through superior fighting or sailing, but through their captain's spiritual acceptance of loss. The ballast of broken dreams was not a physical object to be loaded into a ship's hold. It was the psychological burden carried and finally released. With the ballast integrated, Aaron was forever bound to the sea's stability, the permanent anchor in the most chaotic waters of the world. He was no longer running from the sea that had destroyed him. He was now the guardian of its peace. Cale retrieved the frozen cannonball and presented it to Aaron, a token of their incredible victory over both Grent and the Maelstrom. "So, Captain," Cale said, a rare smile creasing her tough features, "where do we sail now that we can go anywhere?" Aaron looked out at the suddenly vast open sea, the storm clouds retreating to the horizon like vanquished enemies. "We sail for every port that fears the sinking sea, Cale," Aaron replied, the silver light of the ballast still faintly glowing around his hands. "We sail to be the safe passage, the promise that some storms, no matter how great, can be navigated." The mended wreck, despite its name, now sailed with the confidence of a flagship, gliding smoothly over the newly pacified waters. Their adventure had transformed from a frantic, desperate quest for an object into a life-altering mission for moral purpose. The moral of their journey lay not in gaining control, but in embracing the uncontrollable nature of life and loss. Aaron had only found the true ballast when he stopped fighting his memories and chose to honor them instead. His swashbuckling days of desperate searching were over, replaced by a noble quest to bring order to the world's most perilous waters. The crew, seeing the profound change in their captain and their environment, became fiercely loyal, recognizing they were part of something historic. They navigated the reefs effortlessly, passing by the frozen, helpless silhouette of the Relentless and its trapped Governor Grent. Grent, the ambitious pirate, had ironically become a permanent monument to his own failure, forever witnessing the peace he could not attain. As the mended wreck left the Isle of Deep Repentance, the stabilized waters followed them like a blessing, creating a clear channel. Aaron and Cale stood side by side once more, their friendship forged in the crucible of impossible odds and forbidden magic. The sea whispered new secrets to Aaron now, no longer warnings, but directions to other troubled souls and stormy shores. He carried the weight of the sea's sorrow, but that weight, accepted, made him impossibly light. The true ballast of broken dreams was the lesson that true strength is found not in avoiding failure, but in embracing the history it leaves behind. The vast high seas adventure had come to its pivotal confrontation, and the spirit had triumphed over greed. The mended wreck turned its bow toward a new horizon, sailing into a future where the storms could finally be managed. Captain Aaron Tidesworn, the man who was once broken, is now the unbreakable heart of the sinking sea, and the journey continued, one smooth wake at a time. This thrilling tale of swashbuckling adventure and maritime destiny comes from Storycraft Studio. If Aaron's quest to find peace in the storm resonated with you, please like this video, share it with your fellow high adventure seekers, and subscribe to Storycraft Studio channel for more stories of dangerous quests.